Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Rafa Crossing from Gaza to Egypt has opened for the first time since Israel's siege began. The first group of foreign passport holders evacuated have now reached the Egyptian side of the border crossing. Egyptian security forces said injured evacuees had also crossed from Gaza as part of a deal mediated by Qatar. It's thought 88 injured Palestinians and around 500 foreign nationals will be allowed out in the first phase. Meanwhile, Israel says 11 soldiers were killed in ground fighting in Gaza on Tuesday, taking the number of Israeli military killed since the 7th of October to 326. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says more than 8,700 people have been killed since Israel's retaliatory bombing began. Pakistan has started to arrest Afghans as the country begins a nationwide crackdown on foreign nationals it says are in the country illegally. Thousands of Afghans in Pakistan have made their way back to Afghanistan in the last 2 months, but many of them, who have called Pakistan home for decades, say they have nothing to go back to, while others say they are terrified to be heading back to the Taliban government. The UK government has announced a world-first agreement on how to manage the riskiest forms of AI. It focuses on so-called frontier AI, what ministers consider highly advanced forms of the tech with as yet unknown capabilities. The agreement, signed by countries including the US, the EU and China, was announced at the UK's AI Safety Summit. Elon Musk, who's attending the meeting, says the summit aims to establish a third-party referee.
What we're really aiming for here is to establish a framework for insight so that there's at least an independent referee that can observe what leading AI companies are doing and at least sound the alarm if they have concerns.
The troubled office-sharing firm WeWork may file for bankruptcy as early as next week. That's according to US media reports. The firm was once seen as the future of the office and was valued at roughly $47 billion in early 2019. But it has been plagued by problems, including a disastrous attempt in 2019 to sell shares to the public and the exit of its co-founder. The company was also hit hard by the pandemic as more people started working from home. WeWork shares fell by more than 40% in after-hours trading in New York on Tuesday. King Charles has acknowledged the abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans during their independence struggle. King Charles and Queen Camilla began the second day of a state visit to Kenya by visiting a cemetery for veterans of World War II. They awarded 4 veterans who fought alongside the British medals to replace ones they had disposed of during the Mau Mau uprising. He then planted a tree in Nairobi during his visit to UN offices. Earlier, the King addressed the wrongdoings of Britain's colonial era but did not deliver a formal apology, which would have to be decided by government ministers. In response, Kenya's President William Ruto praised the King's courage for addressing such uncomfortable truths.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse.
And it wouldn't be Halloween without a Heidi Clum party, and the model did not disappoint with her 22nd annual Halloween party in New York. Clum called on Cirque du Soleil to help her emerge as a peacock with a mini performance on the red carpet outside the marquee nightclub. The television personality said she wanted to create a fun and beautiful moment for guests. The model also dressed her husband, Tom Cowlitz, as an egg. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.